Straight back at you with more Neblime against the Shambler Grand Finals Ascension 5 release practice. That was a mouthful. Let's get into Otherworld because we've got so many of these. So let's talk a little bit about the Shambler, the Midnight Green Protoss in the bottom right. And he is going up against Neblime, the Glacial Terran, in the top right. So since the last video went live in this set, this is now obviously 2 days later, and the Ascension 6 map pool has been decided. So Otherworld, a new version of it is actually going to be in play. We've got safer naturals because this was shuffled over a little bit to improve the defensibility, but keep the angle of attack into the ramp, which I think will end up allowing, again, that sort of early aggression between players on the right-hand strip of the map, and then have like the whole left-hand side be possible for other things. I'm expecting that in this particular case, we'll probably see. You know, I actually don't know if any of the Otherworld games go long enough to go to macro and you actually see the other side of the map. But if that does happen, we should be able to sort of pinpoint different areas where I think there will have been improvements in the new version, and that could be a little point of interest. Otherwise, yeah, pretty much just bog standard, right? We've got stockades. I did talk a little bit with Neblime in between. I think that was yesterday. I talked with him a bit, or maybe the day before, and I asked him what was up with the bio, basically, like why he was trying bio, and he said that he was essentially trying the same kind of thing over and over again, where he was just practicing a mass stockade play versus Protoss, because he apparently has either he had really little faith in setting up for a fulcrum push or a mech push or something, or maybe he just wanted to practice this style in particular. But, you know, he's going up against Shambler's 2-gate. Again, I think it's a little puzzling that Shambler keeps going 2-gate when, as far as I know, I don't think Mist ever went 2-gate. I think he always went 1-gate expand. So it's a little puzzling there, a little confusing. We did have, of course, the stim pack out of the Maverick and the Scribe being sent away. And we'll see about that one. But maybe, you know, what Shambler was typing about timing there could actually be relevant, because maybe he was getting the 2-gate timing done in a situation where he can then do a really fast pressure build. It's just, this does slow down an expansion attempt. So if you're not successful with this, like, I think if you get one anchor, like, as soon as you scout 2-gate, I think you build an anchor here as Terran, and then, like, your in-base treasury or something, or an expansion yourself, like a proper expansion or something. I don't know. I feel like that's pretty legit, but nonetheless, the first Rakuten is on the way. Neblime looks like he's going to go ahead and take the back base. There is a Hurakan guarding the ramp along with 5 Mavericks, and yeah, we should be in a pretty good spot to have him hold this first early aggression. If you guys don't know much about Cosmonic Brood War, then you're essentially watching two of our higher tier players play. However, Shambler is off racing, it must be said. He is playing Protoss to try to help Neblime practice, because at this stage in the timeline, so to speak, the Grand Finals have not yet happened. Mystery Meat apparently defeated Shambler, 3-0, like what happened in the playoffs, and Shambler then decided, all right, I'm going to try to help practice. So we did have a very late stim there, but it will still be active when Shambler pops in, so you can see he's losing a lot more HP than maybe he was expecting. And I think a little bit of Focus Fire would have done Neblime good there. He could have actually killed one of the Drakudens. So an anchor is under construction. Again, I think this is pretty late, but maybe when I said earlier, yeah, when you scout the 2-gate, you just build an anchor, that might have been a little bit too fast. Like, I think you could probably, especially on a map like Otherworld where the distance is kind of long, you might actually be able to go for an expansion by then. Shambler's very late on his own Nexus. The rescout did come in and confirm only the 2 gates. That basically confirms to the Terran player that the guy's going for an expansion behind this. So they back and forth talking with each other. So at this point, Shambler is sort of just doing the stock standard pressure. It's interesting, again, but like, this is not Mist's playstyle. So obviously we know that in the Grand Finals, Mystery Meat had a very different idea anyway. So it's kind of interesting to see what the deal is there. Unfortunately, Ahmed is going to die. He did not survive after all. And it's just going to be more Mavericks, more Hurakans out of Neblime. Now, in that last game that we casted on I think it was the last Otherworld match, where he had the Trojans and Neblime tried the Hurakan drops, and it was horribly wrong. Did not go very well. I think this is a Vestry coming up, but yeah, there it is. That's a classic move, by the way. At some point, we want to make it so that you just hold shift and hit the add-on key, and you're good. Like, it just works instantaneously. You don't even have to place the building, but we haven't hooked that up yet. So, who knows when that will happen. There is a Maverick standing watch over here. As a bit, I actually implemented a standalone lodestone you can garrison, and obviously it gives you an anchor to shoot out of, right? The bunker garrison type, but also detection, and it's essentially a Xel'Naga watchtower, but in Brood War. So I thought that was kind of funny. I was never a fond of those. I felt like they just sort of forced map interactions instead of it being like more gradual, more natural. But within StarCraft 1, where you don't have as many critical issues, with pathing and other stuff, then that could be a thing. Now, there's only one Mason over here to repair, and there now is a pretty large number of Dracodons, and I think the focus is going to come in, and Neblime stims but does not repair. So yeah, that's a dead anchor completely, and only the Zealot lost. Again, one more unit attacking this Dracodon, I feel like would have done the trick. And there you go. It does end up getting focused down. Another anchor started in the background. We have 2 clerics healing up these guys. Against Dracodons, though, because they deal 15 damage a pop and it isn't reduced by like unit sizes, so they are dealing full damage to these Mavericks, what you want in this particular case to try to keep your units alive is more or less you want like Ant Seals or something like that. Because they are anti-burst by comparison, right? Clerics are better for sustain. If you've got like Ecclesiasts or Manifolds being, dishing out small amounts of damage, then that can be pretty good. Now, we do have another stockade being added, actually 2 stockades, and there is a star pad here, but it's not being made, not being used to create ant seals. So, again, I don't think Shambler can really go up this ramp at this stage. He definitely seems like he's not been able to pressure as much off of the 4 gates, and he's got some idle workers. He's behind in workers, which maybe you would expect, considering Neblime went for the faster expansion. But definitely could have been, adding more tech. At this point, I feel like it's clear that gateway units are not going to cut the cheese alone. We have even more stockades happening. We do have the Trojan idling. There will be more Hurricanes and such. And the Neblime is macroing over here at his expansion. So, don't mind me. I'm just trying to fix my camera hotkeys. I think I've gotten everything done. Yep. Okay. So, over in this expansion, he's got 15 workers on minerals. That is going to be really, really good for him. It's essentially like almost optimum saturation, or, without losing efficiency on anything. So, pretty solid there. And just some light harassment, but trading a Maverick for a Dracodon is going to be the Terran's, favor all day, every day. And Antseal finally coming up to help shield the ramp. That will basically make this impenetrable. There are some Dracodons, and it's just Dracodons, it looks like. No ground units moving their way over here. And it looks like Neblime has either Star Sense or has just decided, I'm going to move over here for the sake of trying to get a good vantage point. So we can start to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are going to be occurring over in this neck of the woods. Because this base is still pretty open on the revised version of Otherworld. But you can actually... Oh, here we go. The Trojan drop to try to isolate and surround some of these. That's pretty solid. He's actually going to bring the unit forward. He only manages to unload 1. A little bit unfortunate there. And loses the Trojan as well. More Hurricanes trying to storm the gates and force these units back. At the same time, these ones are charging forward. The Antseal absorbs a huge brunt to them, but does eventually die because Shambler's attention is focused on trying to micro this fight, which is a lost cause. He ends up losing 3 Dracodons at the gate, killing an Antseal, which is pretty good. That's a lot of gas lost. And a little bit of micro here, stutter stepping, should help him out. These Mavericks helpfully moving to the bottom of the map instead. So, yeah, a war on 2 fronts. We definitely have that happening here, and it looks like they unload out of the anchor to stim, and we do indeed have more Hurricanes in the Trojan here. This could be a spot where Shambler could get boxed in and end up losing most of his active forces in this area. He has some reinforcements trickling up from the middle, or I guess like the right-hand side of the map, but you guys know what I mean. The middle path in the right-hand side of the map. And there you go, burning down a lot of the armor there for the Dracodons. You can see some of them had 0 armor for a second. And unfortunately, that Trojan does end up going down. I feel like Neblime is still hemorrhaging a lot of units, but Shambler, on the meanwhile, is floating a ridiculous amount of money. More clerics than combat units over there in the bottom, but maybe they can still get something done by harassing a base or whatever. At the same time, Shambler only has the 2 bases. He hasn't secured his in-base or his other optional 3rd. And more stockades are being added. It's just Hurricanes out right now, but Mavericks have just popped out. More Trojans being created, engineered, and deployed. Manufactured, and we have no gas mining at the natural just yet here for Neblime. He's a very mineral-intensive man right now. Mineral man, Mineralis himself. So I don't know. He was able to charge in here. The one Warden did a lot to soak up and absorb a lot of this damage. It doesn't look like we lost too many Scribes, if any. I don't see any of their corpses here. Now it's just going to take a while for the Clerics to die. Yeah, love that. So in Cosmonic Brood War, Clerics, as opposed to Medics, don't actually have energy, so they can heal indefinitely. Now, these Dracodons were spotted, and this amount of bio is not going to be enough to clear them out, especially with a little bit of micro here. But, you know, okay, here comes the Hurricanes. They can just kind of focus this down. And again, Neblime fat-fingering the button to unload or something like that. Didn't end up happening there. With grid hockeys enabled, I just hit C and while my mouse, I also have quick targeting enabled, and I just hit C while my mouse is over the Trojan itself, and it'll start unloading, because that's essentially like issuing the unload order onto the transport, and then while it's decelerating, it's unloading. People remember that trick from stock StarCraft. Some Clerics getting a little bit more mileage out of the bio here, but eventually they too will fall. And it's just sort of like streaming a couple of rounds of, you know, effective updates and reinforcements and stuff. It's not really a huge army, and even if it were, like, how are you going to get on top of these gateway-only units? We're seeing a very low-tech situation over here. There is going to go ahead and be a third base finally taken here for Shambler. He could have done that a lot sooner. Rallying more and more Dracodons, including one that gets stuck because LOL Grand Library placement and general LOL base placement. He definitely pranked himself there. I think that's one of the many things he was typing about earlier. And a very light amount of forces. There is a 7 Hurricane drop, but it's been rallied over towards the attack point because there are 10 Dracodons standing tall over here. Unfortunately for the Hurricanes, they will once again be focused down, and only one of them gets out. I swear, Neblime has, like, engineered a Hurricane genocide or something, because there's just been, like, 1 or 2 unloading. And these are like death machines, contraptions that are being escorted to death. Yeah, there we go. We finally had an unload. He manages to get 3 units unloaded. One of them was a Maverick, so not as useful as if it had been a Hurricane. But, hey, at the very least, it does, like, draw away. And you guys can see the limitations of bio at this point, right? It's like you're constantly relying on the Hurricanes to actually rend the armor. It's just not working out. So, you know, one of the things that you have to say about this set, right, is that at this stage, you know, Neblime is constantly practicing it. He's constantly trying to engineer a better result for himself. Now, is he going to be successful? Are we going to end up watching like some of the later stage Otherworld matches and see that, oh, he's actually got the bio strategy down pat, or the style, if you will? I'm not sure. He's also playing on a less safe version of Otherworld than what we have in Ascension 6, the forthcoming tournament that will be going live in under a week. So that's something that you guys can keep in mind as well. Definitely an interesting sort of strategy. Let's see what he ends up doing in whatever game we decide to go on to next. Probably not Otherworld, because I already casted 3 of those. And we return to Boscovine. This is actually the second game that they played all together. The Lemon Protoss in the top right is, of course, Shambler. The Cosmic Cobalt Neblime Terran, that's in the bottom left. So, in the last match on Boscovine, Neblime went Wraiths and did a decent amount of damage. But obviously, then the Shambler was kind of like forced into this weird area where he decided not to return his Dracodons to the backline base and try to deal with those Wraiths, etc. Neblime says he gets nervous if he doesn't scout. Yeah. Well, in CMBW, it's absolutely a not necessarily a requirement, but I would say scouting is a pretty big deal. And he's not talking about just worker scouting. He's talking about like being able to gather information and stuff. So I guess maybe this is the time where he's going to try to confirm what he's doing. Maybe this is the genesis of this bio strategy that we're finding out. I feel like a lot of these games are going to go the way of Shambler purely because Neblime is doing his darndest to practice out a strategy that maybe doesn't work in most of the cases, or requires a high sort of familiarity cap, you could say. So interesting stuff. Yeah, he's now realizing that Shambler likes to do scout pylons. I think this is because there was a pylon over here, right? Anyway, interesting stuff. I honestly think there can be a lot of potential for like sort of proxy production or forward production here for Protoss. Obviously, the reason that you usually don't see that is if the pylon gets nuked, then you lose out on your production. And unlike Terran, you can't just lift off. So maybe Terran has the better idea for it. But it's so easy to have the scribe put down a pylon, wait 10 seconds, put down something else, and then go for it. And we do obviously need to see some more micro out of this unit. Oh, just narrowly ends up getting it without any micro. Never mind. I was waiting for it. You know, you got to shoot and then move and shoot and then move, etc., etc. Mason scouts the 2-gate opener once again. It's pretty bog standard stuff. What are we going to end up seeing next? And speaking of next, I don't even know what map I'm going to cast next. Again, there was like, I don't know why there's like 12 Otherworld matches, by the way, or something like that. But there's also Nightfall, Repulsion, Nitro Valley, and maybe that's it? I don't remember. Oh, no, yeah, I think that might be it, as far as the matches that were played. So we might end up going to one of those next. Either way, Shambler is shambling with a Dracodon. Dude, I cannot wait until we have a replacement Dracodon model, or sprite, right? And like, we get a model done, and it's just better. It's just better. So that's going to be very interesting. The Mason hanging out over here. We're not sure if he has his wing out or not, because he's got a suit protecting him, so probably not. But hey, even if he does, who would know? And we do have a ball of 8 Mavericks. They are on their way over here. They're going to go ahead and stim and try to get on top of the Dracodon. And that will cut the shields. At this point, the Dracodon is going to fall back to the high ground, where it will have a range advantage. I mean, even more of a range advantage. It looks like neblime doesn't want to bother with that, so he's going to go ahead and fall back while his ministry gets built on site. Now, Shambler, this might be an overextension. Again, there was not really great micro here from neblime, but he does manage to pop that. He has some Masons over here in general, and that can absolutely be used to deal with this attack, but he's being a little lackluster about it. Now he wants to repair his Mavericks, you know, the damage they've sustained from their suit being attacked. They're being welded, you know? And meanwhile, a scribe has executed a Mason and remains idle, gloating over its fallen victim's corpse. Now, again, this is not a cliff advantage on release, so not a great spot to be defending versus Dracodons. He's going to go ahead and stim forward, try to focus down one Dracodon, but a third has now arrived. This one might be a very, very lightning-fast game here, folks, because now we have 3 Dracodons. And again, it's like essentially 2 per, right? Because, he's busted the macro cycle a little bit. But he's essentially lost everything. GG's immediately called, yeah. So this is the kind of thing where it's like we're starting to see the seeds of how that was initially set up. And I actually don't think that you can put the ministry on the low ground in this kind of context, right? But this is just my sort of observation as it's being done in real time. And, you know, we're just going to have to see what goes on. I guess we'll go ahead and, you know, cave, if you will, and just go straight into another Otherworld match because... yeah, we've got a lot to deal with. So we'll do one more, and then we'll see where we're at for time. Because if some of these matches end up being really fast, then I can just cast way more of them, right? So this is played right after the first game that we casted on Otherworld. And we have the beige Terran in the top right, the Palatinate blue Protoss in the bottom right. Shambler providing more and more coaching, despite neblime consistently beating Shambler. But hey, it's ideas. You sort of crowdsource the ideas. Maybe you get something worth taking a look at. So, that being said, nothing could possibly have prepared neblime for lattice openers, which were mostly there from Mystery Meat as a way to dissuade the Wraith play, because it kind of like encourages you to build more bio, and then you switch into Gateway. And again, despite all of the Gateway bio practice that neblime has had so far in the set of games that we've casted, it has to be said, he was not prepared to counter the Gateway transition on Boscovine that Mystery Meat got it to him in game number 1 of that series. So it was really interesting to me that, like, he's practiced so much bio versus toss, specifically gate toss with like heavy, like 4-gate opener after your expo and stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty legit. So I just feel like it's interesting that he got all this practice in. He got all this typing in. And Shambler, you know, tried to get him ready. And it just didn't end up happening. Now, he has a slightly different pylon placement, so he can put his next gate right here. Which I assume is going to happen at some point. Also, can anybody tell me how this logic is dictated for when the message is green? Because when the message is green, it's supposed to be your message. I guess it's like Neblime's replay, but Shambler submitted these replays. So why would that be the case? Like, I thought maybe it was I was selecting his unit, but I've selected Shambler's unit. Since Shambler's messages are never green, it's always Neblime. So maybe it's just like, Oh, I know what it is. Yeah, never mind. I figured it out in my own head. Yeah, the way that Lard code works is really funny. All right, so despite the typing, our players are indeed going to be trying to play this game at some era, and they're actually expanding at relatively the same time. So this is the first time we've seen Shambler go for the 1-gate expo, so he's throwing a little bit of a wrench in the plans, and his first Dracodon will still arrive in time to slap the Mavericks in the early stages here. There's only going to be 3, and he will indeed have an expo. I like these ideas here. So, the first Dracodon has arrived. One Maverick pulled back. Mason immediately on the front to build an anchor. Obviously, that could be lifted off and moved a little bit closer. And, yeah, because of the expansion, right, the second Dracodon has only now started production. And therefore, it should absolutely be used here, but Shambler's typing, so you won't see it used. But you should definitely be using the Dracodon here, but you can't do as much kill pressure in the early stages. Although I think, like... while this anchor isn't up, one Dracodon can kill infinity Mavericks. So I don't know. I think Shambler's kind of fucking around with him here because he's busy typing and thinking about his next move and stuff. But he absolutely could have used this one Dracodon to kill so many Mavs. It's a little bit weird that didn't end up happening. Anyway, the Ministry being constructed here. Just about done. And Nexus, obviously, just about done as well. So this time, the expansion timings are pretty legit. Between our players. I actually wonder, honestly, I feel like Shambler didn't even ask neblime if he could submit these games, because they're literally just like neblime trying off-meta strats to see if he can win, and Shambler just like A-moving him with Ape Toss and winning. And it's like, yeah, let me just pad my stat. I mean, submit these games that are very legit. But, you know, I'm sure neblime isn't too bothered by the situation. So yeah, he's expecting Otherworld to go this way, where he can go the mass bio and stuff. Interestingly enough, some other tidbit that Shambler shared with me is that when he was playing against Mist, before playing against Mist, he practiced against Hamster's Protoss. And to me... Great. We know, Shambler, we know. We saw the series. To me, I feel like the... the thing that Shambler said that struck out to me the most is Shambler did not do the things that were actually finding him success in the past, and as a result, he that's why he feels like he dropped a lot of the games against Mist. Also, he got really demoralized after the Otherworld match, because he could have just targeted something differently, and then he would have been fine. So now the Dracodon stack has grown a little bit more threatening in this match. We've kind of seen this pattern play out a number of matches so far. And again, I thought earlier that like neblime was holding just fine. It's just that he never really pivoted to anything that was a heavy hitter. You know, he could have gone Cyprians. He could have gone literally anything. Aha. I love Brood War. Putting a Warden down in his main. Yeah, how does this even happen, though? Like, there's no pathing there. Like, there's nothing that's impathable to the right of it. There must be, actually, something. That's not true. It was 37, and now it's 39. You liar. Now, okay, the Dracodon count is amassing. I still feel like Protoss could just go for, like, Siege, you know? They might drop the Ardent Authority, grab an Architect or an Acantor or something and start sieging up. Because they know you don't have anything with range if you go mass bio. So, I don't know. It's interesting, but I feel like you need something to supplement the bio here. You know, if it's Goliaths or Blackjacks or something. You need something to supplement the bio. Now, this is still the patch where the Scrapyard was a little bit slower to make and a bunch of other things. So, you know, I don't necessarily blame neblime for not using that. But something has to give. Like, you have to, at the very least, like, if you're going to go mass bio, you have to be banking gas during it so you can benefit from the fact that you're not spending any gas. And once again, his Hurricanes are not on the front lines. His anchor is immediately focused down. The Dracodons are on standby to watch for the Trojan. And of course, there it goes. Hey, it actually unloaded 3 Hurricanes, which is more than I thought. Stim to go on top of the Dracodons. The front line has been dealt with. And now only 8 Dracodons remain, some of which are indeed damaged. But they sniped the Trojan, they sniped the anchor, they thinned the herd. The units are on a move command. I could probably rewind the game to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure they were on a move command. That's usually what happens. Like this. Like if... oh, no, I guess they were on... that's just on the terrain. Never mind. But you can tell when your units are on a move command because they have a line focused on one unit. And it's green. Scouting Ahmed reveals the Crouching Tiger. Some stimmed Mavericks charge forward bravely. Anseal over here. Ah, Anseal to protect the Trojan while it unloads. That's a good move. Big fan of that. Apparently some Hurricanes tickled him on the other side. You killy it. Oh, maybe he was dropping a Nexus there and it actually died. Oh my god. Yeah, Shambler has 1,000 minerals still after all of these gates, so... Ahmed saves the day again. Burn down them gateways. Yeah, Warden's not getting canceled. Shambler is on full stun mode. I won't say tilt mode, because it's a practice game. How could he possibly get tilted? But he absolutely got pranked. Now there is still, of course, the Hurricanes here to unload at any point. And the Anseal protecting the Hurricanes is a big brain move as well, since now the Warden won't even be able to thin the herd. Now, we do indeed have a couple of Dracodons out here. There is this one who is stuck, essentially a photon cannon, right, a Warden. That was a juicy target for Ahmed, but he's mad at the impathable Dracodons, so not going to happen. There we go. Just moving him forward. Unload. Here comes the Anseal to try to protect. A little bit late. Ends up getting all of its shields gone and will indeed fall. But now a full stack of Hurricanes have arrived. It's 12 Hurricanes. My brothers in Christ, this is Ahmed's glorious day. The last thumbnail was Bio versus Protoss, ... This one should be Bio versus Protoss with an exclamation point. It's just all those Hurricanes charging forward. Yeah, all right, well, I'm really surprised that he managed to win this because I still feel like even after losing the Nexus, Shambler could have won this game. But you know what? The Bio actually worked. I just don't... The thing is, I really don't think you would commit more to Gateway here. You know, because you have no AoE, and your opponent has no range. So you can go for Ardent Authority, you can go for Stargate, you can go for so many things that can help you clear this out, and it feels a little silly that that wasn't the case. Now, here come the stimmed Mavericks trying to get on top of these wounded Dracodons. There's a bunch of units still being held up over here because of the Clerics Infinity healing themselves. A legit strategy, I think. But meanwhile, you know, the rest of the blob that's sort of slowly single-filing its way up the map, yeah. Good luck, boys. Some of these on move commands. Classic. Trojans can go back home, reset, or wait for Hurricanes to show up, indeed. Pretty good way to elevator your stuff in. Clerics are have been wiped out from this base, apparently. Or they just left. I think that's more likely. Yeah, neblime trying to get a critical mass back, and obviously Shambler, in classic Shambler fashion, aggressively overextending. Like, this game might seem unwinnable to him, but he's got even workers. There goes one of the... no, make it 2 Trojans. There's still nothing here for tech. It's just stockades. Man, the Dracodon count is growing as well. I think maybe Neblime also loses this game, too, to be honest. Like, again, like, it might look grim from Shambler's perspective, but just because he keeps building Dracodons, and just because they're better than Bio... Oh my god. Neblime is stalling out. He's lost all of his steam. He has constantly produced units, but they're not good units. Especially not versus Dracodons. if he... I don't know. I think if you just have, like, 2 stockades, one for Vestry healing producing, and then the other for Hurakan producing, you can do your Trojan drops. But you definitely need mech, man. Like, you can't... I don't think you can get this rolling. Not here. If these were madcaps because he teched up, because he saved all his gas, because he never needed to spend much, then that would be a separate thing, right? Now, without any force targeting here, this is going to get a little messy. Stimmed Mavericks do charge forward, but look at all of the Drakidans. And the Hurakans are mostly dead to the Wardens before they can really do anything. He ostensibly did some worker damage there, but he's at a 10 worker deficit. Yes, Neblime has less workers than somebody else. I know this is like a crazy moment. Mark your calendar. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, this is GG, as Shambler said. It's just GG because Bio can't do anything. At what point does he just decide to bank his minerals, tech up? He really he also needs to expand. Like, he's got very limited money. He's starting to mine out in the main. So this is looking pretty awkward, right? Gonna go ahead and force unload over here. And does manage to get that up. That Trojan is completely empty. Mavericks are on move command, stimming down. Now they'll start to activate here and pop some of these Drakidans. Okay, this force seems to have been taken care of. And there are still a lot of Wardens. There was a drop in the main, but unfortunately, no Hurakans in it for once. So it looks like that's I assume that was a drop, but I actually don't see... I don't see any evidence of Trojan being killed, so maybe not. And a little bit of micro over here essentially concluded this Bio force as well. Might even be able to pick off the Trojan, indeed. And by extension, another Maverick. And yeah, I mean, there's Wardens in all the bases. He can continue producing Drakidans. He can add more Wardens. It's literally the 1-unit challenge for Shambler. I know he built Zealots earlier, but he doesn't need them. Maybe with enough Trojans and enough Hurakans, you can bypass the obvious critical weaknesses of the Bioforce because you can get on top of stuff. But I think with all the static defense being added to each base and the worker count continuing to blossom for Shambler, I don't know, man. This is not looking too hot. He's really committed to the bit. He could drop tier 2 now. He's not dropping an Expo, though. All right, here he comes. But look at all of the Drakidans that were already en route. They don't focus down the Trojan at the end of the day, so it will get its unload off. But I think that might only be good for kill... No, it's not even going to kill a Warden. Maybe I would pity kill the Warden or something myself. Now, there's a lot more Hurakans over here, along with some Cleric support. No Anseals, unfortunately. So the Wardens will go down in this base, which will make it a little bit more vulnerable. But Shambler doesn't mind rebuilding that situation. He's starting to add some Zealots now. I don't think that's going to be too hot versus the Hurakans. Well, they might be too hot, actually, is the problem. But again, like, there's no range support that can do any damage. The Hurakans have been thinned out thanks to the Wardens. And I'm really not going to be seeing too much more action out of here. Neblime, again, every time I say he's lost steam, he hasn't actually lost steam. He's losing a lot of Clerics there in that stack. There's 2 Drakidans over here that can just come up over here and attack the natural, which is, again, the only super efficiently mining base. And look at all the Wardens that just got sent up. Yeah, he's held, and there's no tech transition despite having it. So he just now drops his Atlas in the main. But again, I feel like that's going to be too little, too late. I guess we'll find out. I know I've been rooting. I've been sort of not really rooting for either player, but I've been. If anything, I'm rooting for the guy who's spamming Hurakans. But I've been saying that Neblime has no chance for most of this game, even when Shambler himself said GG, or probs GG. But, yeah. I don't know, man. It's not looking too hot. This is not his finest moment. I don't know how he's going to defend. He's starting to get some Cyprians, so maybe that can be a potential option. Obviously, they won't penetrate, but they deal more damage than the Hurakans do, right? They deal full damage because they have 2 armor pen, and that's going to be much more damage than the Mavericks, excuse me, not Hurakans. But they're just going to get stepped on here. No Hurakans made because of the money. He ends up going for another Ministry instead, despite obviously being in a very, very hostile, like, volatile position. Calls GG, and even in that situation, Ahmed could not deliver him. And so, these 3 matches that we have chosen sort of randomly, but not necessarily randomly because we have to cast all these other world matches at some point, they are indeed going to conclude in Shambler's favor. And okay, well, that's going to be the end of this particular video, but we will have more for you. Like I said, there's like 23 or some ridiculous number overall. Maybe it will end up being 1 to 22, but maybe there's some games that are dispensed with there, where neblime finds he solves all the formulas and cracks the code, and he's able to use Ahmed to defeat Gateway Toss. There's only one way to find out, and that's to stay hanging out, stay subscribed, and eventually you'll be able to watch the rest of the videos that I cast for these. Why am I casting all of these replays? Well, because somebody has to. Wink. See you later.